I'm not gonna lie, I was loving that music. Absolutely loving it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the swappity doodah that we have done today for reasons because, you know, it's a new year in some places, and if you are celebrating your new year at the moment, good for you. If you're not, oh well, it's Sunday. Hello and welcome to Transition Stories, Season 3, Episode 11. Blimey, it's episode number 35 I've done. You are the 35th person I have interviewed.
Nice. I mean,
I'm really impressed with that, and I haven't even interviewed me yet.
I mean, interviewing yourself would make an interesting.
You could do it. It's like do it, you know, really strategically, so that I take up both sides of the screen. But it has to be a pre-record, I reckon. Because if you would do that live, you'd get your timing.
That would be the impressive thing.
It would be
the live way. I mean, that is the future. So yeah, I think you should consider it.
It is. Well, hello and welcome to the campfire that is Transition Stories today on this beautiful day in England. Not quite sure it's a beautiful day in Scotland, but there you go.
It's all right.
It's all right, as they say. I am Phoebe J. Rose, and this is my wonderful guest. Say hello, Siobhan.
Hello, I'm Siobhan Craig. I am nowadays mostly a Twitch streamer. Previously, those of you who follow me will know that I have both detransitioned and retransitioned throughout the course of my journey. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that today and reasons and all that kind of stuff. I used to be, before I became a Twitch streamer, I used to be involved in education. I was quite senior, so I've got some opinions about that kind of stuff too.
So let's hope this is an educational stream then.
Yeah. I mean, but it's anyway, not likely to be, but
well, you know, it's you and me. What do people expect? But anyway, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Phoebe J. Rose, and I am a binary trans woman, and I am the host and founder of Transition Stories. And welcome to all of my mods and everyone who has turned up. So, without further ado, Siobhan, let's begin. So,
okay, let's go.
So, let's start. You say that you're a transitioner, a detransitioner, and a retransitioner. Was there ever a period in your life when you thought that you were just a cis person?
Not really. Like I've got to be honest. Obviously, I'm a little bit older than.
You don't look it. You really don't look it.
I try. I mean, it's a combination of the Botox and flattering lights.
also, the youthening power of estrogen.
Oh yeah, of course. You know, 100%.
And my Soros check. I've given you a portion of my Soros check because we need to make sure that you keep that youthening going.
It's really important. I mean, otherwise, it's not worth it to me. Like, let's just you know, stop. So yeah, as you know, always knew something was up. Obviously, as a kid, being really obsessed with certain characters and TV shows. Secretly watching things like, I don't know if you know the old My Little Pony cartoon from the 80s.
Yes, I know.
Used to be on Sky One. Back when the thing was called the Sky Channel. And they used to do this Saturday kind of cavalcade of different kind of shows and stuff. And it used to also have like Jam on it and shit. And I used to watch that incredibly paranoid that I would be caught watching it because.
Did you ever watch the Action Man version? Yeah, My Little Pony. Then you had the Action Man cartoon as well.
Yeah, no, I didn't watch. Like that's the thing. I think as an adult now, I could watch an old Action Man cartoon and actually probably ironically enjoy it. But as a kid, I was like, "What's this?"
Did you have Action Men?
No, what were Action Men?
Mighty Max.
Yes, I did have Mighty Max. I did have Mighty Max. 100%. Love that. I think the collection of characters in it. Just they were
tiny as well, Mighty Max. They were absolutely tiny.
I know.
They were genuinely. It's like this was like a genuine choking hazard for like children.
Yeah, they also used to break quite easily because these stuff. Yeah,
the hinge was really rubbish. The hinge was real.
But yeah, I mean, going back to your question. Sorry. No, at university actually was the first time I encountered trans people. Just in my life. Before that, I'd only really seen it on Coronation Street, with Hayley, who was like
Julia Hegemony.
Yeah, who played
Hegemon Dahl.
Yeah, I look. I'm saying yeah. I don't know. I know her as Hayley.
That's the actress. That's the actress.
Yeah, I got
Julia Hegemon Dahl.
So I was aware of her, And that was like is what transgender people were. So it was okay. So her, and it's really sad for her, and she gets to marry Roy, who was is a nice guy, but like
Well, came across as a bit wet.
that's the whole thing. Oh, okay. We're going to go on a quick side jaunt here because I've got a very important opinion here about Coronation Street and Coronation Street's views on intellectuals. There's two types of intellectual in Coronation Street. Okay, the first one is when what's his name? He played Gandalf.
I know who you mean.
Ian McKellen.
Ian McKellen, yeah.
Yeah. So Ian McKellen was in it for a little bit. And he was really smart, and he did a book club, and he ended up like conning a load of amount of money. And it was like he was a bad intellectual because he was smarter than everybody, but like that meant they were like prey to him. Whereas Roy was the other kind of intellectual in that he knew loads, but he had no social kind of intelligence.
He had no social airs and graces, did he?
Yeah, exactly. So it could be like, oh, Roy knows more than us, but he doesn't know the important stuff.
He doesn't really understand it, so it's a bit, yeah.
Yeah, but two types of people of intelligence in Coronation Street.
But I'll always remember this. But yeah, but on this Coronation Street tangent, we're going to go on a Coronation Street tangent just for a little bit here, and then we'll come back to the reason why everyone's here. They didn't look, but yeah, I'll always remember the scene, and I was watching it with both my parents at the time when they reveal that Hayley is trans.
Yeah.
They're at an international airport and they're going through this scene, and Roy gives it, and they give the passports over, and Roy gives his passport over, and Hayley gives the passport over, and then the guard looks and says, I'm going to quote this directly because I've always remembered this scene. It's like, come here, sir. No. The other sir. And that was how Coronation Street revealed to everybody that Hayley was a trans woman.
Wow, that's wow. Yeah, that's rough.
And that was it. And that was in the late, was it early 2000s or late 90s?
90s, 100% 90s.
Late 1990s it was.
Yeah.
And that was groundbreaking television.
It was, yeah.
And here's the thing. 22 million people watched that episode live as it went out. 22 million, which is incredible to think about that today. Yeah. And that was where it kind of all started in British media. It was sensationalist and it was absurd, but I'll always remember that one scene where the border guard goes, come here, sir.
Yeah.
No. The other sir. It's like,
yeah, it's shocking, but it was the reality of the time. It was completely the reality of the time. Before the Gender Recognition Act, that's how it was, you know.
But it was slightly inaccurate, though, because you've always been able, since like the 70s, to change your passport and change your driving license. You weren't able to change your birth certificate.
Doesn't
make good TV, though. Doesn't make.
How are they going to reveal it unless like you stop the airport and they go, excuse me?
And then at the end, when they killed off the Hayley character.
Yeah, I wasn't watching Coronation Street stuff like that.
I didn't watch it. I only watched this,
just this story.
Just this story arc was all I watched because I found it on the internet. So somebody had pieced it together. Just this story arc had pieced it together. So I watched it, and at the very end, Hayley gets cancer, and she says, "I don't want life-preserving treatment because I don't want to lose my mind because I don't want to detransition in my mind. I would rather die as I am than detransition in my mind." It's like,
that's a bit heavy. That's
a bit heavy.
Bit
heavy for primetime television. There, it's like, crunch. But
holy shit.
But there is a question that I have for you around all this. So, when they were introducing media representations of trans people, how did that impact on you? And how do you look back on that now? You know that you've gone transition, detransition, retransition.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly helped clarify some things in my brain. I mean, at that point, obviously I was a teenager, and it was like, or early teens, and it was like, oh, so you can actually change. I don't just have to like kind of trick my way into certain roles via games and stuff. You can actually do that. But obviously you've got to be much older, and it's got to be a kind of big tragedy and all. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of drama, a lot of kind of it wasn't portrayed as an aspiration, if you get my meaning. it was still not great, even though it was introducing, as you say, 22 million people, across the country to the concept where they might have lumped every kind of gender non-conformity together into one kind of bracket previously. It was like, oh, so there are this group of people who do want to transition and live life as another gender. Yeah. It's outrageous, absolutely outrageous. Like
I know.
kind of commentary that stalks me. But yeah, so it was never portrayed as something that was, that was going to be all right. I never saw like kind of trans positive representation in media, really, except outside Coronation Street. Lots of jokes around the idea of it because it was so gross. And then I was like, well, this obviously can't be a thing. Went to university, started being able to wear what I wanted, which was a wonderful thing. Still got a little bit of stick due to that, obviously, but for the most part, it kind of really helped when I went to university. That I mean, time makes fools of us all. Let's say, huh?
It really does.
It does, doesn't it? It's horror show. So I was, I organically kind of passed as when I was walking around without having to actually do anything. So I kind of just sank into that, just wearing what I wanted, being who I wanted. It was a magnificent thing. But I was still very much like, I'm not going to transition. I can't. This is way too hard. Way too hard. What are you talking about? Because I saw how some of the trans women were, and to be honest, my self-preservation and feeling that it's probably a phase, or it'll be okay.
Did you ever view it as social suicide?
Oh, I mean, I think it goes beyond that. I think that, like, at the time as well, like coming out as gay, which I already was, could be considered to be a social suicide. Like, it was still controversial. Like the the Civil Partnership Act was passed while I was studying law. Actually,
that was 2004.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was studying law.
I remember following that through Parliament, and I'll always remember that there was this nonsensical comment that was made by the then leader of the opposition, because there was always something of the night about this leader of the opposition, Michael Howard. There was always something of the night about him. And he said, this will in no way be comparable to gay marriage.
Yeah.
It's just like... So what civil partnerships were in the UK, and they aren't anymore civil partnerships. They are just a civil alternative to marriage. But you can still have civil marriages, because civil partnerships in the UK are now open to opposite sex and same-sex couples, and marriage is open to opposite sex and same-sex couples. It's just the way that the law has worked in the UK.
Yeah.
But that was the feeling, that we were giving same-sex couples a piece of the pie that was inferior to the piece of the pie that's opposite-sex couples had, which was
you can't
really demeaning.
I remember, as that was passing through, some conservatives making arguments about how kind of horrendous it was, and then trying to scupper it by making the civil partnerships open to your parents and children, as an additional way of...
As siblings.
Yeah, as siblings. Who else did they say? Yeah, carers and people they were caring for. And
they also tried to remove the age limit as well.
Yeah. This is it, exactly. So it's like, well, that would scupper it completely, and it didn't, because, it was a different time when certain bits of legislation could kind of get through without being incredibly anyway.
But just speaking of legislation, 2004 was an incredibly big year for equality legislation, because 2004 was also the year that the now famous, or depending on how you look at it now, infamous Gender Recognition Act passed.
Yeah.
And talking of poison amendments that were put to it, there were amendments put to it in the House of Lords that said that in order to get a gender recognition certificate, you must have chromosome mapping done. And it's just like, you're just out to kill the bill.
Yeah.
You're out to kill it.
Frankly,
they failed, but that was the kind of thing. And these things, they were not the end of the world when they passed.
Yeah.
So
quite obviously, yeah. Being a law student, like I say, being a law student as well, being, you know, having to actually listen to all that, having to actually kind of like discuss it as a manipulator. It was. I'm not gonna lie. It was relatively harrowing. I think it's a big reason why a lot of trans people have been quite upset and have been quite shocked by the visceral
and the vitriol.
of vitriol. Visceral is of
The
course.
visceral vitriol.
Yeah, exactly. Of transphobes, of the gender critical movement. But this to me is literally recycled. This to me is literally, oh, okay, this again. So I'm kind of able to have a bit of a, "Oh, okay, here we go again" attitude, which makes you a little bit more, I don't know, kind of facetious when you're arguing.
It gives you a bit more of a shield, I think.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Exactly. I know what it is. I know what can happen. Thankfully, last time, the debate was won, if you will, because there was an amount of people who actually were like, actually, I know Barry, and he's a gay guy, and I know his partner, Steve, and they're all right. What are you talking about?
It's like my dad. It's taken him 10 years, but he turned around to somebody and went, "What are you on about, mate?"
Yeah.
You're talking nonsense. What are you on about? It's like, oh, well, thanks, Dad. I never thought I'd say that, but it's like, oh, well, thanks, Dad.
Yeah. But you know, that's the thing, isn't it? It's just a repetition, and nice people who know other nice people tend to not really like. They think, well, they're all right, and if they're all right, then maybe they're all right as well. You know, it's the more visible we are, the harder the argument is to make. But the problem is, there has always been not a problem. This isn't a problem, by the way. So there's always been a lot more, say, openly out gay men than there have ever been trans women. We're a much smaller fraction of an overall you know, LGBT community. So it's much less likely for an individual to know a trans woman or a trans man or someone who's non-binary than it is for them to know someone who's gay or, you know, someone who's lesbian.
But saying that, it's also much less likely off of social media to meet a member of the gender critical movement. They are such a small number.
100%.
They are just voluminous in what they say. They're actually a tiny number. And
yeah, I know.
I think that does shape the debate. So, as someone who has your history, when was the first time you started your first transition?
Okay, so as I was saying previously, university, having a great time, was like, yeah, it's me. Suddenly, oh shit, I've got to go get like a job. Like, this is it. So let's be a bit more serious. And I worked as like a salesperson and a data processor for a year before I joined teaching. And by that point, it was like, I obviously can't do this. I got to focus on work. That's just what has to go forward. So I did mannerisms. I kind of, as embarrassing as it sounds, like machoed myself up a little bit. Not well at all, but tried to be as normal as possible. However, 2010, I was in absolute breakdown territory. You know, I won't go into too much, but it wasn't a good place for me. I started to seek treatment again. Like, rather than just, I'd had some counselling over the years, but like not from specialists. So 2011, I mentioned the NHS. Hey, look, there's some problems. Can we have an assessment or something? Cool. And I got an assessment at the local clinic they had in Bristol, which isn't the GIC. It's just an assessment.
You just saw a shrink.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was the same thing that I had to do in 2012. Just saw a shrink.
Yeah. It's just so yeah, sort of absolutely lovely. Yeah, it was really sympathetic. It was like, okay, yeah, you know, clearly, yeah. What number is it? Something MTF transsexualism idea.
Yeah. And the ICD and then the DSM and all that stuff.
Yeah, numbers. And I was like, oh yeah, this means I want to be woman, right? It's like, yeah. So they then referred me to the gender pathway. And I've got it in my doctor's notes. I read them again recently, and it says, oh yeah, refer me to gender pathway. I said, cool, brilliant. So in the interim, though, because I imagine that can take a little bit of time, I will go with clinic in London. And so I paid privately to wait, you know,
to accelerate the process.
Yeah, to accelerate the process, because it was like, let's go gung ho, bish bash bosh. I was really nervous at the time. I started dressing. I started having a lot of quite intense therapy regarding my feelings. I started basically just making steps. So I didn't like fully socially transition or anything like that at this point. Okay, this first point was me just getting the steps ready to make a move, to do it, to go for it. You know, partner, knew all about it, discussions, yada yada yada. And I saw somebody. I had a pretty unpleasant experience at a clinic, where it's actually got written down that I'm quite lazy in one of my secondary assessments. So it's like, so it's like I'm doing anything. But there was a lot of like, oh, it was more focused on, like, yeah, clearly I think it was gender identity disorder was put down as at the time, clearly GID. However, like this and this are about passing, and it's all about passing.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Did you ever go to a support group?
I don't need to be disparaging.
I understand that.
No.
But yeah, I went to this support group. One of the first things I was told at this support group was, okay, when you go to your appointments, full makeup, have your hair done, jewelry, dress or skirt, make sure you're really smart, carry a handbag, go over the top with it. It's like, and then to the men, it was like, wear a suit, wear a tie, take a briefcase, the lot.
Yeah.
It's like,
so I turned up dressed. I mean, this isn't even just, it's private. You know, it's you're paying for the nose for this. Turned up, was like, oh yeah, okay, but you're dressed androgynously. It's like, well, like these women's clothes, but yeah.
I haven't met your individual personalized standards of what being a woman in the third millennium of the is.
There was no dispute about like diagnosis or anything. Like that wasn't what was the thing. It was specifics, like, oh, probably because of having Crohn's disease and being a smoker at the time, will not feminize readily. And it's like, and this was coming from a position where at the time still people looked at me and were confused at worst. They were like, they weren't
give
sure.
You a double take, but then go, yeah, all right.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, what are you talking about? So that kind of set me back a little bit. And then I got a job at school, kind of fell into a bit of depression. And my partner and I had some difficulties regarding it. And I thought, I can't do this. This is ridiculous. Like, it's still, like the Equality Act had passed. The Gender Recognition Act had passed, like, 7 years earlier. There were, things were moving in the right direction, but it was still quite actually early days for, the people in this country who were seeking the process of transition. So I just thought, I'll knock it on the head. I'll just be miserable for a while instead. That'll do. And I'll wait for the NHS to get back in touch with me, because I've been reverted to the gender pathway. So they're definitely not going to leave it, are they? They're going to get back to me. So
eventually. Oh
yeah, I'm sure. Exactly. So then I had a few years where I was really ill, and I've got Crohn's disease, and I did not look after it in my 20s at all. Like, as a kid, lots of treatment. In my 20s, I haven't got time.
I'm 20. I'm healthy enough.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be absolutely, like, why would I be concerned about that? 100%. So I collapsed at work. I had a lot of time off work. My innards had strictured my intestines. So long story short, I had to have like 6 months off work. Had 15 inches of it cut out. It wasn't great. And in my mind,
did you have an end-to-end endoscopy done?
What?
Did you have an end-to-end endoscopy done where they take slices out of it and they glue it back together?
No. Gosh, no. No.
You said you had 15. You had a certain amount of it chopped out.
Yeah, 15 centimeters. Oh no, sorry, 15 inches of
15 inches. Yeah.
So yeah, no. I tell you what, they did keyhole surgery. They pulled out every part of my intestine, looking for strictures, and then they cut, and then they sewed back together. Now, that means every bit of my intestines has been out of my body, and that is a horrific thing as far as I'm concerned. Like,
it really is. That's a bit on the whoa.
Yeah, and that's what I live with. It's like, oh God, but I'm fine health-wise now. Anyway, the point I say this.
But did that
is-
ever affect? But did your Crohn's disease ever interact with how you approached medical transition?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it was a case of, well, I might actually die at the moment, so maybe, you know, I had a lot on my mind during that period. My nan who brought me up literally just died as well, which was pretty sad. You know, I lived with her growing up. Yeah, I am a nan kid, always the way. And, you know, they loved her dearly. And she'd spent the last, you know, year being looked after by my dad and family members in a sheltered accommodation. And it was very tragic to me that she died. And that happened while I was off work. And I actually got a phone call in the limousine on the way to a funeral from the doctor saying, look, we're going to have to operate. And, and me saying, let's go, I'll ring you back.
Did you say, I'll go to the funeral first, and then did you say, see you in about 3 hours?
Yeah, no, I said, oh, okay, well, thanks for telling me. I've got to go to a funeral now. They were like, oh, so sorry. They were nice. But yeah.
It's nice to know that there is humanity in the medical profession.
Yeah. It's, you know, like, we've got to cut you open. It's fine. Come back later. So I was in a pretty bad way. My work as well decided at the time, won't say where I worked, to pay me. They had an option basically. They can pay you or whatever of your wages, or they can give you the minimum, which you're entitled to, which is like at the time for me it was 6 weeks full pay, 6 weeks half pay.
Yeah, and then it's statutory sick pay.
Yeah. But no, it wasn't statutory. It was my wage.
Oh,
like that, something called the Burgundy Book. And
I'm with you now.
Yeah,
my law school brain. Oh, when I hear the Burgundy Book, I know what.
Yeah. Exactly. And so that's the minimum that you're entitled to. So like, I was obviously like, oh shit, I'm gonna die. Had to have time off work. Was literally signed off. And then when it came to it, they were like, no, you can just have statutory sick pay of this amount. So I suddenly got into a position as well where I couldn't pay my rent, where I couldn't pay bills. I was defaulting on everything. It was like, oh, this isn't good. And to kind of, I made a couple of silly decisions before my operation on the premise that I might not live through them, which was like, I bought myself a new computer, like so I could enjoy myself before it, because I hadn't played video games in years. And a couple of other things. And that meant I just took on some more debt, because it was like two things. I will either die, don't have to worry about the debt, or two, I will live and I'll be so happy that the debt won't matter. So that's kind of the beginning of the end regarding my credit rating. So
that's why you no longer live in England. You're fleeing your creditors.
Oh yeah, I'm fleeing all sorts. That's yeah. I'm like what do you call it? Political exile.
Are you fleeing the Habsburgs and stuff?
Yeah, 100%. You know. So where were we? Where was I then?
We were talking about how medical transition was affected by other medical conditions.
Yes, of course. So it wasn't like all this kind of stuff happened. It wasn't the time for me to be transitioning, like especially as everything was up in the air at the time. Everything was completely up in the air. So I was like, I'm gonna leave this till after the operation. So after the operation comes along, I'm alive. Hooray! Absolutely fantastic. Living the dream.
Yay, not dead.
Not dead. Woo! We get to like 2015, and I'm right. Okay, we need to deal with this now. Because I'm X amount of years old this year, and I thought that getting to a certain age and not transitioning would put the whole thing to bed. Because if I'd got to this age and not transitioned, it's too late. I can't transition.
Was it age 30?
Yeah. Shush. I don't want people to age me. But yeah.
No, but what I'm saying is that age 30 was the age that I said got to do it by. Other people that have been on this show said got to do it by, and it's just like age 30 seems to be one of these things that people just go, if I haven't done it by age 30, I'm either gonna end it all or it's not a thing.
Exactly. So it's like a kind of race. Like, can you get to 30? Like, I'm 29, I'm really ill and all this kind of stuff. it'll be fine. Yeah, I will get to 30. Got to 30, brilliant. Shit birthday party. Which was basically me and a friend and my partner and my dad eating like ice creams in a pub. It was like great, living the dream here. And then I was like, oh shit, so I still feel exactly like this. And I remember early doors, I had a friend from Canada who transitioned. And when I'd said like, I can't do this in about like 2012, 2013 to them, they've gone, look, that's absolutely fine. You know, it can be very hard, but I do just want to tell you, the feeling doesn't go away. Like it doesn't go away. And I thought, maybe for you, but you know, who knows? And that those words actually always stuck with me. Like after 30 and stuff, when it was still like the kind of consumption of my entire brain, it made it very. Oh God, what phrase am I even going for here?
Would you have said that it became all consuming?
Yes, completely. It just gave me no room to focus on anything else except for that. So what happens then? I'm going to rebuild my life. I've been evicted, you know, I'm in loads of debt. I lost my job. Well, not lost my job, yeah, it is.
You have the things that, did you ever look at yourself and think, I've got the things that matter? I've got my health.
No.
I've got life.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't have my health. So it was like, no, I was like, oh, I've got nothing. But it's always been the case. So let's go. Let's crack on. Next chapter. So yeah, then I start a new job, a new place. I've been referred, by the way, but I'm skipping a little bit ahead. Before I start my new job at the new place, I've gone back to the GPs. I've not heard anything. I need a referral to the GICs now because it's
poke.
Yeah, it's been like 4 years since this was written in my doctor's notes, and like nothing's happened. Something's gone wrong somewhere. But
yeah, there's been a miscommunication along the way.
Yeah. Benefit of the doubt all around.
Yeah. But, be nice to them. It's when they start saying, "Now we haven't referred you," and you're going, "Yeah, but I got this letter saying you've referred." It's like,
that's an issue.
That's an issue. That's different. Yeah.
But no, basically, like, so I go to the doctor. She says, "Oh, you have to be already presenting as your gender if I'm going to refer you." I'm like, it's not the case. It's not the case, really, is it? Like, come on. Unfortunately, I did get a little bit drunk before that appointment, which is not good. Admittedly. On these little kind of Barbados rum things that a friend of mine had given me, you know. So I was on the bus, had a little drink of them on the bus. They're very small, just to kind of steal.
They're like one shots, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Just to a little number to take the edge off, as I believe a lot of people say. Got in there, you know, asked for a referral. She was like, "Don't know that we can do it." I was like, "You can. Can you refer me, please?" She was like, "Well, okay, but obviously it's going to be up to them whether they see you or not." I'm like, "Fine, you know, fine. That's fine."
But doctor, please do your job.
Yeah, 100%. Especially as we're at the impasse because it says in the notes 4 years earlier I should be referred. Yeah, remember like the gender pathway thing? Remember that bit? Yeah. So I'm expecting you now to actually refer me, right? That would make sense.
Action this, please, action.
Action this. We've been waiting a little while. Action this, please. So, nothing happens. I've started my new job. I'm very aware. I'm gonna have to tell people that I'm gonna transition. Oh crap! I'm gonna transition on the job. This is gonna be like a big thing. Like, oh shit. Okay, so shit. So, end of my first year there, we have a lovely party. Everything's great. You know, we're all out in the town on a Friday night. Bye everyone. Everyone looks beautiful. Everyone looks absolutely beautiful. I'm like so kind of like upset that I haven't told people yet that I start telling people who are close to me in the job, like, look, this is the situation. All lovely, all fantastic and supportive. Everyone I told then, known them for a year, genuinely supportive and lovely. Like, did not get a kind of bad, didn't get a bad response at all. You know, that's the thing. So it was like, oh, hooray, you know. Then went back to the doctors that summer. It's been a year. I know it's meant to be like about 18 months or so before you get your appointment, but can we check on that? It's not been sent.
It's supposed to be 18 weeks.
Come on, it's like.
But yeah, it's 18. But I think I've misread it because it's the referral path is supposed to be 18 weeks. But it's actually, they go, well, it says 18 months here. It's like, well, they could have misread it. It could have been 18 years, but unfortunately, that's the trajectory where we're going at the moment, which is just a bit scary.
I think I'm already there, really. So yeah, we'll get onto that bit. Trust me. So I actually get the referral sent, and I know this because I get a letter saying I am to join the queue for the laurels, and I am like, yes. This is August 2016 at this point. August 2016. So it's been like half a decade since I'd broken down to the point where I was like, I have to transition. You know, bearing in mind before that point, it was just like when I was got with my partner. He was always it wasn't like a hidden thing that this was probably going to happen at some point. You know,
there was no closeting of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. It was like, look. That's what.
So just for those of you in the chat, the Laurels is the general identity clinic down in Exeter, down in the southwest of England. Whereas you may have heard me in previous episodes talk about the Hammersmith Clinic or the Leeds Clinic. There are, I think it's 9 general identity clinics in England. I'm not certain on that, or is it the UK? But we're talking about the Laurels down in Exeter at the moment.
Yeah, Laurels in Exeter. So I finally get referred. August 2016. Boom. Excited. In 18 months' time, I'm going to be seen by the NHS. Very exciting. So in the interim, a new service starts up called Gender GP, and I'm like, you know what? Let's try this new service. Let's see. I'll get some therapy through them. I will, eventually, hopefully, get one more. We'll see how it goes, because like 18 months—that's a long time to wait for the NHS to give me an appointment, to be honest. It's a very long time. I can't imagine waiting 18 months for any kind of medical intervention in my life.
I couldn't imagine waiting 18 months to complete my house, let alone medical treatment.
18 months, exactly. 18 months. It's absurd. But you know what? I can wait 18 months, but I'll just get a little supplement before I go. So I go to Gender GP. I have assessments. I have some counselling for a while. Everything's talked through. They're incredibly supportive. And the therapist there challenged things as well. They weren't, this idea, it's like, affirmation care is all, God, so the window opened. Affirmation
See, that's affirmation care right there. You just jump through a window.
Oh God, yeah, it's like, come on, let's go. Affirmation, it wasn't. It was challenging things. There was opinions I had, things I said, and so forth, that weren't just like nodded at. It was challenged. It was therapy. It was very well done. And then eventually, after about 6-7 months, sorry about this.
It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor, because to transition through the NHS, you don't walk through a front door. You seem to have to like dive through a window.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the metaphor that we're going for there.
100%. That's it's like. I saw a Gender GP, and they eventually prescribed me a low-level dose of estrogen and finasteride as a blocker, and was on that for a while. Then I got my dose upped, all going well. Medically, I started to, this is like, I'm able to talk about bodily changes and stuff, right? Yeah, so like breast growth.
As long as you're within the terms of service of Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube, you can talk about them. If you start showing them, then we may be outside the terms of service. So,
we're fine. We're fine. So I agree, like, clearly unmistakable breasts, and very, very few other changes at the time. There's some skin stuff, and it was pretty magical. However, like, my testosterone had dropped to, I think, 0.8. I was already,
nice low number.
Yeah, very low number. Yeah, I mean, initially it was like often between 4 and 7. It dropped down to like 0.8. I was like, hooray! I feel a little bit panicky, but hooray! Estrogen levels reached what we wanted to. It was going really well. It was going fantastically. At the time, then, I'd contacted my bosses at work, and we talked through my transition and how it was going to go, and yada yada yada. That's the thing. Partway into that, and planning and the medical transitioning, and I had a bit of a mental break, and it was largely because of the fact that I started perusing the Mumsnet forums, which previously unheard of. It's a place for mums. They're having a lovely
Yeah,
time.
Mumsnet, when it started out, was really sanitized, really lovely as a place to go.
Yeah.
Now Mumsnet Towers has been invaded and has been overrun, and it's now Mumsnet
Colonised.
Ivory Towers.
Yeah. I remember even their like forum that might have well just been called Transphobia Forum. Even that was mixed between people who supported trans women and people that really hated trans women. There was like a mix. There was arguments that used to happen there and shit between people. But I started reading this stuff, and it was people basically. Now, I had an understanding of the law. Now, as a law student, admittedly, did not get a law degree, so I'm not gonna. I ended up qualifying in English literature, so I'm not making any claims to kind of legal credence. However, I have studied 2 years of law, so reading through legislation and statutory guidance and stuff, it doesn't completely like befuddle me. And it was my understanding of the law that there were exceptions. Cool. Okay.
Yeah. That's the way the law works.
Yeah, of course. And that those exemptions were for very specific things. And things that actually within the trans community, there's still debate about. Whether, like, for example, changing rooms I would never use anyway. Not because I don't feel it's right, but because I don't want to get changed in front of anyone. That's a horrific thing to me. So I'd never use a public changing room. So for me,
I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. I've been to Iceland, I've been to the Blue Lagoon, and the first thing that we were told was, please note that the locals will just wander around naked. Oh, and by the way, there are no sex segregation here. It's just, hello!
Well, that's it. Like, to be honest, there's lots of hills to die and there's lots of hills to not, was my opinion. So I was like, yeah, okay. I knew that those exemptions didn't apply to a lot of those. That actually, it's what are you talking about? Like the idea of, say, remember from the guidance, a women's rights centre, a women's shelter. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have somebody who comes who's had a transsexual woman who's been their partner. That's it. And they fled from this person because of abuse. Yeah. It would be reasonable in that circumstance to deny entry to the shelter to her partner, even though her partner is a trans woman.
Yes.
That was the kind of level of it. That was the extreme level of it. That it had to be legitimately.
And the other another thing, it also applies to gender identity clinics. So gender identity clinics apply the single sex exemption based on gender reassignment because they exclude all cis people.
Yeah.
That is part of their remit. They're entitled to exclude cis people.
Yeah, 100%.
So this is the level of extremity that we're going to with the gender reassignment and the single sex exemption here. You have to have these levels of extremity to go to.
Yeah. Well, this is it exactly. So there were some exemptions, and I knew there were exemptions around sport and various other things. And it was like, okay. But they started to push the idea then, this is 2015, 2016, around this era, that those exemptions actually covered privacy and dignity. And privacy and dignity is everything a woman might choose to do. And even with the GRC, gender recognition, even with that, you can be excluded from those things. So, they were suddenly, it went from, a business, have a look. Sometimes it's okay to not cater to trans women. Sometimes, if you can really validate the reason why, then
it's a really extreme reason why.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I don't want to muscle my way in to anywhere that actually is going to cause a problem. Do you get what I mean? That's not what it's about.
There are some areas that are a real, genuine exemptions you can go into. 100%. But they are so narrow and so extreme. It's like the gender identity clinic that I use is the example. They have an exemption where they are entitled to not offer services to people who are not trans in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And that's the level of extremity you have to go to here.
Yeah, very much so. Very, very, very much so. But they were spinning this yarn that wasn't the case. And it was actually Stonewall law and all this kind of shit, to be quite honest. It was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, Stonewall law. And they started basically reprogramming people on that forum to understand that, whoa, there's debate on this. And the issue is just like with, I'm going to be potentially controversial here, depending on your audience, but it's like climate change. Like you have 99.9% of scientists who are like, yeah, climate change is a thing. It's real. It's happening. Like, what's going on? And then you have like 0.01% of like, I don't know, some scientist who specializes in like igneous rocks or something. Just something that might not be to do with anything. Who goes, actually, and I reckon there is climate change. And it's
or he
presented
goes, this bit here wasn't climate change. It doesn't actually say that there isn't climate change, but just goes, this bit here isn't climate change. And then all the people that go, it's not climate change, look, he said this bit here isn't climate change, therefore, it's like...
Exactly. 100%. That is the exact thing. And it's that presenting of the argument as 50-50, or we just don't know. When everything was established, everything had been established by the two previous acts. It was fine. There was no need for of any changes.
So
really,
you had the gender reassignment regulations in 1999. You had the first Equality Act in 2006, and you had the second Equality Act in 2010, and it wasn't up for discussion.
Yeah, it was done. It was a done deal.
It was just done.
They started acting. This is the exact thing. They started acting, and this was their brilliant strategy. This is where they did like perfectly. They started acting as if this was a new battle to be won, as opposed to them trying to roll something back. And it was that actually started to give them some credibility, because it's easier to say, I'm fighting for X rights, than it is to say, I'm fighting to remove X rights from this other group. You know, it's Absolutely. Like, it's why I always compared gender criticals to race realists. You know, 100%.
Race realists and what's the other one? So there's gender criticals are race realists, and there's another phrase that will come to mind. And everyone's able, and everyone's able people.
Yeah, exactly. So it to me, horror show stuff happening. I started to sink into a deep depression then, because I could see remnants of when I used to be a young buck and go onto the Daily Mail forums and the Sun forum, and even at some point Stormfront, to argue with people, to say, no, actually, guys, it's not horrendous to be gay. No, this is, completely pointlessly. The stuff on the Sun forum before they shut it down, oh my God, it was horrendous. It was horrendous. It was just like being a gay person being called a paedophile every single time you post whatever.
It's like they might as well have just put a paedophile.
Yeah, exactly. So it was, but that was what it was like. And I started actually realizing, oh, so I've got to go through this again, we're going to go through this exact same thing that we've just had again, but we're being trans rather than gay. Because
it's going to swap out the enemy.
Yeah, exactly. And then I started seeing some, very, very, very few, but some lesbians and gay men being like, yeah, actually, screw the tea. Interesting enough, I was at the NUS LGB conference where they added the tea. I remember that. I was I was just one of the delegates when I was president of my university's LGBT society. What an accolade!
I've got
in the second year, like basically the second year of doing it, voted out, massive landslide, deserved. Here's a question I have to ask for you. So you've identified throughout your time as a trans woman. Was there ever a period where you identified as something other than a trans woman? Not necessarily in terms of gender identity, but in terms of sexual orientation. Oh gosh, can we come on to that in one moment? Because that is, I think,
yes.
Yeah, perfect. I just want to get the last gender criticals. Basically, I was like, I'm not strong enough to do this. Complete breakdown, detransition. That was my first medical, my medical detransition, as opposed to previously where it was a lot of social stuff.
Social detransition.
It was a proper detransition where I just cut everything out. I was like, oh, do you know what? Put a pause on this to work. Put a pause on this. No any further. I've got issues with my partner. There's all this hate happening. I don't think I can do this. So I went back into the closet for a little bit. Just going on to the sexuality thing. Yeah, I identified, obviously, growing up as a gay man because I was like, well, I'm into guys. I'm gay then. So that's it. That's that. And then, obviously, when I started to just confirm that I was a trans woman, I was like, well, I'm still into guys. There are letters on the hat. It says Moonchild. Okay? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I then thought, well, I'm straight then. So even when talking to people during my transition, being like, oh, so you're like, you've gone from being a gay guy to a straight woman. I was like, yeah, makes sense, right? And one of the things I did notice during transitions is that you become much less attractive to gay men. Like gay men are just, they're not into this. They're not into this. This is not their thing. And
Wait, what you mean to tell me that you were actually a homosexual transsexual?
What?
And not just an autogynephile?
Oh, yeah, gosh, right. We'll get on to that. But initially, yeah, I mean, you could have considered me like a gold star gay man, basically, before I...
Platinum gay.
Platinum gay. Is that the term? Platinum gay?
It's platinum gay and gold star lesbian.
Platinum gay, 100%. So, sexuality-wise, then I defined straight. And then I started to have... When I started to actually be really happy with who I was and started to feel like, oh, hold on, I've lost a lot of shame about this. I realized that actually women were pretty beautiful as well. Now, there's a shared experience with other trans women, which I feel gives me a kind of it gives us a connection. So while I wouldn't say I was attracted to cis women in terms of forming a relationship and various other things, like I did realize that with trans women I was. So I kind of came out yet again as bisexual, because hey, I'm inclusive of certain types of men, certain types of women. That's what bisexual is, isn't it? So that was it. When I started dating and sharing my life with another trans woman, it was like, oh yeah, it's certainly some of the letters of the LGBTQ, isn't it? So
there's a lot of letters.
Yeah, it's something. It's something.
But do you find that where you are now, looking back on where you've come from and looking back on the journey that you've had, do you find that you have found who you are?
Oh, 100%. 100%. This is the issue. It's like previously everything was a facade. It was a character. It was
previously on Shiv.
Previously on just like it was. Yeah, it was just a survival mechanism. I realized if I acted a certain way, I'd do really well at such and such, and people would treat you a certain way, so you do that. Just trying to get through and have an easy life, like as much as possible. But then obviously 2019 comes around. I'm like, oh, I can't. This detransition's killing me. I've started to get therapy again, quite a lot of it, from different sources. I got a couple of other diagnoses that we won't go into. And yeah, I realized actually I did need to do this. So 2019, started my transition again. It's where there's a picture of me like looking fat in a waistcoat. That is a pre-transition photo. Which I always use as a comparison, because it's like me, maybe at my most miserable, versus any photo after that, which is like...
what you should do is you should do a side-by-side where you're in a corset today next to the waistcoat photograph.
Yeah.
And then do a side-by-side and then go, this is me now and this is me then.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. And there's like no joy in me. To be honest, became a horrendous person. Like a really horrendous, hateful person. Because it's like, well, screw this world. This world.
I hate the world.
Yeah, hate the world. Hate the world and everything in it.
Yes. I know that better than most people, shall we say? But if you know my history, you know that better than most people, especially in the chat. So if you're in chat, you're wondering, just check out some of my other videos where I've spoken about me being not a very nice human being. I've been told I'm a much nicer human being now, but
see, this brings me on to something else actually, which has been my attitude historically towards GCs, to the trans people I would call quislings, who seek
the pick-me trans.
Huh?
Pick-me trans.
Yeah, exactly. I have a heart full of forgiveness. I will forgive anyone that change and makes things right. And that's what it's about. I've got a number of former GC respected people, mutuals on Twitter, for example.
Absolutely.
What they've done is much less important to me than what they're doing, So I think that, I mean, I've got to believe in redemption. I've got to believe in it. I have to believe in it. So, I mean, I'd like to think now, and it's honestly been a big part in help from my current partner as well. It's taught me a lot of kind of things that I did and the way I used to be, which were coping strategies for just survival and getting through and anger at the world. Bearing in mind that the reason I didn't transition really was fear a number of times. You know, it was the fear of how it would be, what would happen, yada, yada, yada. So while I say, oh yeah, GC's on mum's net, yada, yada, they created a climate but I know people who were in the same boat as me then and bravely went forward. You know, I know people who are in the same boat as me and fought back rather than just crumbling. So when people say, like, oh, you're so brave and stuff like that, I think, no. I'm a coward who got to a certain point where there was no choice and then had to just do it. You know,
Yeah.
that was it.
And I think that's a lovely place to begin to wrap up where we are.
Yeah.
I ask this question to a lot of my guests on here. So we have Siobhan and we have Siobhan today sat in front of us. And we go back to school-age Siobhan, just starting out in the world. And you can meet each other. And you sit down and you're having a coffee with each other. What does school-age Siobhan say to today's Siobhan? And what does today's Siobhan say to school-age Siobhan as you both drink what I'm assuming is a nice cup of tea together?
So I would say to school-age Siobhan, those actual, you know, I'm gonna, you know, steal from someone else here and say, doesn't go away. Might do on some people, doesn't go away on you. Okay, so bear that in mind regarding your decisions. That it's not just going to suddenly be okay. That you need to plan for the fact that it's not going to be okay, and you're going to need to transition. Does everybody? No. But for you in particular, you definitely do. That would be what I got across. And what school-age Siobhan would look back at me and say, "Oh God, I turned to you. What happened? You had all these plans. You know, are you a lawyer at least?" No, that didn't happen. No. Oh God, okay, that is what would happen. But I know that there definitely would be a looking at me and a lot of fears and understanding would have been alleviated. I think that any me from 6 months ago to a year ago to 3 years ago to 5 years ago to 7 years ago and so on would look at me now and be like, oh, it's not too bad then. Okay, so you happy? Yeah. Oh, right. So it works out well. Cool.
So is there anything that you would say, just like a final thought from you, that you would give to anybody that's watching this and identifies with your story? What would you say to that person?
Firstly, detransitioner is becoming a bit of a dirty word within the community nowadays, based on the fact that so many stories of detransitioners have been co-opted by some actually quite brutal people who will love bomb you and make you think everything's going to be okay and that you were right and yada yada yada. No, seek solace amongst your brethren and sisterin. There's a term, I can't remember. Anyway, not important. Seek solace amongst your community, because you'll find that I haven't met anybody who's been down on detransitioners. I haven't met anybody who's like, unless the detransitioner has actively started to hurt the community through their own errors. Conversely, I know a number of detransitioners, a large number, who have detransitioned at some point for exactly the same reasons I did, which was not unsurety, being uncertain, which was, not for reasons of finance, which was not for reasons, of depression or whatever, but out of fear, not for reasons that they didn't think it was right for them, out of fear, out of just, I can't do this. As a personal level, I can't do it. And those detransitional voices need to be heard just as much as the ones who were like, oh, the doctors forced me into it. Oh, by the way, sorry, as a final point, because there was a mystery that went on throughout this, wasn't there? The mystery of my referral to the GIC.
It was. I was going to bring up, which I was going to bring up once you'd finished that. But no, if you want to do it now.
Yeah. So
everybody, take a deep breath, have a swig of tea or whatever beverage that you are consuming, because the mystery is to be solved right now.
So, 2016 actually got referred. Fantastic. I'm still on the waiting list. I'm still today on the waiting list to see the laurels. Even if we ignore the 2011, even if we ignore the not sent in 2015.
Even if we ignore the shutdown of the world in 2020, 2021.
Yeah. everything. Like by the time of like the COVID times and shit, I was 4 years into a wait list.
You should have been seen already.
Oh, I should have been seen years before that. But now the Laurels, who I used to ring up on every couple of months in the hope that has there been some movement, because this prescription regime is killing me financially. So is therapy. You're gonna help at any point? No, I'm still waiting. I mean, I'm sure I'll hear from them at some point, but I think the clinic's closing down. So what are you gonna do?
You might be one of the last ever patients.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've clearly rushed me into this. The doctors have clearly rushed me into this.
Look, okay. Look, this is just rapid onset. It's just rapid onset gender dysphoria.
Pretty rapid. Pretty rapid.
There you go. Yeah. But anyway, it's been a beautiful chat with you, Siobhan, and all I can say is that it's been wonderful. Do you have any final thoughts? And where can people find you in the wonderful world of, what you do? And if you have any,
of course. So final thoughts. Genuinely find community. I spent a number of years effectively being like, oh yeah, I'm not like the other trans people. During my medical transition, actually, number of years, I'm not like other trans people. I'm just going to be a normal and fitting with everyone else. Now, actually having community, most important thing during a transition. Having community, not having other people do it for you, but having community, so you can look at the people, what they're doing, beyond. Secondly, entertainment is something that is needed in our community. Is definitely needed. That's centered on us. And where can people find me? Well, on Twitter, which is where I do.
The Twitter link is down here. And
there it is. Yeah, there it is. Cool.
It is at Faust Fury.
If you're interested in rambling morality tales and some what I would class as A-tier humour, but no one else seems to agree, and also some political takes, then come and see me on Twitter. I'm also a Twitch streamer. I Twitch stream retro games, sci-fi stuff, horror stuff, a lot of stuff I haven't played, basically. And we've got a lovely community that's very LGBTQIA plus centered, but very open to all allies, and they all get on really well. So yeah, anyway, message me on Twitter if you want to know more.
But yes, I say that's been absolutely wonderful. So thank you ever so much for today, Siobhan. Thank you for your time today. But for those of you who know the things around here, I say this at the end of every show. You get one life. So make sure that you live that one life to the best that you can. And if you're doing that, then hopefully happiness will be there at points. To everybody who has turned up today, thank you ever so much. To my moderators in the chat on YouTube, on Twitch, thank you ever so much for all the work that you do. And to my producer, Odd Techman, I couldn't make this happen without you. And to my wonderful guest, Siobhan. Say thank you, Siobhan, and say goodbye, Siobhan.
Bye.
I have been Phoebe J. Rose, and Transition Stories is a joint production of Phoebe J. Rose and Odd Techman, and this has been Season 3, Episode 11 of Transition Stories, and I have been interviewing Siobhan. So until next time, everybody, live that one life to the best that you can.